It's dark. You flip on the porch light, and there it is, flat against the wall, 8 legs frozen, 2 eyes catching the glow. Your hand reaches for a shoe. Stop. Put the shoe down. That spider is doing a job you've been paying strangers hundreds of dollars to do worse. I know that now. But for 11 years, I killed every single one I saw, and I paid for the privilege of being wrong. Here's what I finally understand. The wolf spider on your porch is free pest control that never sends a bill, never sprays poison near your grandkids, and never misses a night of work. I spent almost $2,000 learning that the hard way. You won't have to. And there's a reason nobody told us this. A Swedish naturalist wrote it all down in 1757 in a book most people have never heard of. By the end, I'll show you a trick with a $5 flashlight that changed how I see my own backyard. It works whether you live on 40 acres or in a second-floor apartment with one small balcony. Let me take you back to the summer I nearly gave up. It was a July night, humid, the kind where the air feels like a wet towel. I remember standing in my kitchen at almost midnight, holding a can of bug spray in one hand and my phone in the other, ready to call an exterminator for the 3rd time that year. My porch had spiders. My garage had crickets. My kitchen had ants marching along the baseboard like they paid rent. And every time I killed the spiders, the bugs got worse. I couldn't figure out why. I thought I was cleaning up the problem. I was actually feeding it. Because here's the first thing I got completely backwards. A wolf spider is not a pest. It is a predator that eats the pests. And when I killed the predators, I removed the only thing keeping the real problem in check. Let me tell you what a wolf spider actually does when the sun goes down. It doesn't spin a web and wait. That's a different kind of spider entirely. The wolf spider hunts. It gets its name from that. The family is called Lycosidae, from the Greek word for wolf, because people watch them chase down prey on foot like a wolf runs down a deer. They patrol. They stalk. They pounce. All night, every night, right around the edges of your home, in the exact places where crickets, roaches, mosquitoes, earwigs, and ants try to get inside. I had one living under my porch step for 2 summers, though I didn't know it at the time. Looking back, those were the 2 summers I had almost no crickets in the garage. I thought I'd gotten lucky. I hadn't gotten lucky. I'd gotten a tenant who worked the night shift for free. The numbers on this stopped me cold when I finally looked them up. In 2017, 2 scientists named Martin Neifler and Klaus Birkhofer published a study that estimated the spiders of the world eat somewhere between 400 and 800 million metric tons of insects and other small creatures every single year. Let that land for a second. That is more weight in bugs than the entire human population eats in meat and fish combined. Spiders are not a nuisance in the food chain. They are one of the biggest natural controls on insect life on the whole planet. And a chunk of that work is happening on porches and in gardens exactly like yours. A single wolf spider can eat its own body weight in insects. It'll take down mosquitoes that carry disease. It'll eat the roaches you'd pay someone to poison. It even eats other spiders, including the ones you actually don't want around. I had been killing my best defense and then hiring people to replace it with chemicals. So, that's the first lesson, and it cost me plenty to learn it. The spider isn't the problem, the spider is the solution. But understanding what it does was only the beginning, because the very next thing I discovered explained why squashing one is far worse than doing nothing at all. Here's the part that genuinely made my stomach turn when I found out. One evening I flattened a big wolf spider by my back door with a rolled-up magazine. Felt good. Felt like I won. Then I looked closer at the mess and saw something moving. Not one thing, dozens of tiny things. Little specks scattering in every direction across my doorstep. I had no idea what I was looking at. Now I do, and I wish I'd known before I ever raised that magazine. A female wolf spider is one of the most devoted mothers in the entire animal world. She doesn't lay her eggs and walk away. She spins a round silk sack full of eggs and attaches it to the back of her body, and she carries it everywhere she goes. She hunts with it. She hides with it. She'll defend it with her life. Scientists who study these spiders have noted that if you separate a mother from her egg sac, she'll search for it frantically, and she'll even try to reclaim a fake one made of cotton because the drive to protect those eggs is that powerful. And when those eggs hatch, the babies don't leave. They climb up onto their mother's back. All of them. Sometimes 100 of them. Sometimes more. She carries the entire brood on her body for a week or two, walking around like a moving nursery until they're strong enough to survive on their own. So when I squashed that spider by my door, I didn't kill one spider. I turned one contained, hard-working predator into 50 or 100 panicked babies suddenly loose on my doorstep, scattering into every crack and gap in my house, with no mother to keep them together and nowhere organized to go. I had taken one manageable helper and detonated it into chaos, right at the threshold I was trying to protect. That's the cruel irony of the shoe. The single worst time to kill a wolf spider is exactly when it looks the biggest and most alarming, because that's often a mother carrying her young. You think you're solving a problem, you're multiplying it by 100 and spreading it under your baseboards. And here's the thing that took me way too long to accept. That spider was never a threat to me in the first place. I was scared of them. I'll admit it plainly. They're big, they're fast, they've got those eyes that shine back at you. Every instinct says danger. But the instinct is wrong. Wolf spiders are not aggressive toward people. They don't want anything to do with you. You are 10,000 times too big to be food, and far too big to be prey worth fighting. Their whole survival strategy is to avoid being seen. When one freezes on your wall, it's not stalking you. It's hoping you'll go away. They can bite, yes, if you trap one against your skin or grab it with your bare hand. But the bite of a wolf spider is medically minor for almost everyone. It's been compared to a bee sting. A little redness, a little swelling, gone in a day or two. There's no dangerous venom to worry about the way there is with a couple of famous spiders people confuse them for. In all my years, and all the ones I've now relocated instead of killed, I have never once been bitten. Not once. Because they run from you. That's the whole point of them. So I'd been terrified of, and spending money to eliminate, a harmless creature that was quietly protecting my home. But understanding what I lost personally is one thing. What made me genuinely angry was finding out how long people actually knew this, and how deliberately we were taught to forget it. Let me take you further back than you'd expect. The knowledge that spiders protect the home and the harvest is not new. It's ancient, and it was written down carefully by serious people long before anyone was selling us a can of spray. That Swedish naturalist I mentioned at the start was named Karl Clerk. In 1757 he published a book called Svenska Spindlar, which means Swedish spiders. It's one of the foundational works in the entire science of spiders. Clerk sat and observed these creatures closely, documented how they lived, how they hunted, how they mothered their young. He treated them as something worth understanding, not something to stamp out. That book is so important that scientists still recognize the spider names in it as official starting points to this day. People took spiders seriously 260-some years ago. In a way, most of us stopped doing entirely. And it goes back further than any book. For most of human history, farmers understood something we forgot. Spiders were the guardians of the grain. In old farmhouses and barns across Europe and early America, a spider in the corner was left alone on purpose, because everyone understood it was eating the moths and beetles that would otherwise ruin the stored food. In some traditions, it was considered good luck to find a spider in the home, and that superstition wasn't random. It came from generations of people noticing that homes with spiders had fewer flies, fewer biting insects, fewer ruined crops. The luck was real. It just had a scientific explanation nobody needed to name. Farmers going back centuries practiced what we now dress up with a fancy modern term, integrated pest control, letting the natural predators do the work. Spiders were part of that system. Free labor, self-replenishing, perfectly adapted to the exact bugs that plagued the exact region they lived in. So what changed? Why did I grow up thinking the only good spider was a dead one? Something shifted in the middle of the last century. After the Second World War, a wave of cheap, powerful chemical pesticides flooded into ordinary homes. Bug spray went from something a farmer rarely used to something every household was told it needed under the sink. And to sell a chemical that kills insects, you need people to believe that every crawling thing is an enemy. You need fear. A calm person who understands that the spider on the porch is eating the mosquitoes doesn't buy the fogger, doesn't sign the annual contract, doesn't panic and reach for the can. That's the quiet part. There is an entire industry whose profits depend on you being afraid of the very creature that would do their job for free. In 2023, Americans spent well over $20 billion on pest control services. Billion. That's not counting all the spray and traps and foggers people buy off the shelf on top of it. A good chunk of that money is spent killing bugs that free predators would have handled, and a lot of it is spent killing the predators themselves. I was a paying customer of that fear for over a decade. I'd call the exterminator, they'd come spray a chemical barrier, and part of what that barrier did was kill the spiders. Then, with the spiders gone, the fast-breeding insects would bounce back in a few weeks with nothing to eat them, and I'd need another treatment. And another. I was on a treadmill, and I was the one paying to keep it spinning. Once I saw that pattern, I couldn't unsee it. And it comes back to life the second you pick up a flashlight instead of a shoe. But if you want to go deeper on this before we get there, let me tell you about something that helped me put all of it together. Everything I've been sharing in this video, the history, the patterns, the fixes that actually work, I've been pulling it together in a book called First Fixes. It's a collection of these buried common sense methods, the ones that got quietly replaced by expensive habits that mostly benefit the people selling them. There's a companion volume called Deep Leverage for the bigger picture thinking, and the full stack if you want the whole system in one place. If any of what you've heard so far has landed for you, you'll find a link in the description worth looking at. Now back to the practical side, because I know exactly what some of you are thinking right now. You're thinking this is fine for someone with a big yard and a barn, but your situation is different. You've already got spiders inside, or you live in an apartment, or you're just not the kind of person who can share their porch with something with 8 legs. So let me talk directly to you, because the next part is built for exactly where you are right now, tonight, with nothing but what you already own. You do not need to move to the country. You do not need to buy anything special. You do not need to become a person who loves spiders. You just need to stop working against yourself. Start with one simple change that costs nothing. When you see a wolf spider outside, on the porch, in the garage, along the foundation, leave it be. That's it. That's step 1, and it's free. Every night you let it live is another night of unpaid pest control on your side of the wall. You're not adopting a pet. You're just calling off the war. Now, for the one that gets inside, because that's the real fear. I get it. Here's the method I use now. And it takes about 30 seconds with things in every kitchen. You take a drinking glass and a piece of stiff paper, an envelope, a postcard, an old greeting card, anything flat. You place the glass over the spider gently. You slide the paper underneath, slowly, so the spider steps up onto it or the rim. Then you lift. Keep the paper sealed against the mouth of the glass, and carry the whole thing outside. Set it down near the foundation, in a garden bed, under a shrub, somewhere with cover. Tip it out, done. No shoe, no mess, no 100 babies scattering across your floor. The spider goes right back to work, just on the correct side of the wall. I keep a glass and a stack of old junk mail postcards on a shelf by my back door just for this. My whole family knows the drill now. My wife, who used to scream loud enough to wake the neighbors, does the cup and card without blinking. It becomes second nature faster than you'd believe. And if you want fewer of them wanting to come inside in the first place, you don't reach for poison. You take away the reason they come in. Spiders follow their food. Where there are bugs, spiders go. So the real fix is to stop inviting the bugs. That outdoor light by your door that stays on all night? It's a beacon. It pulls in moths and mosquitoes and every flying thing for 100 feet, and the spiders simply follow the buffet right to your entryway. Switch that fixture to a warm-toned bulb, the yellowish kind, or one labeled as a bug light. Bugs are far less drawn to that end of the light spectrum. Fewer bugs at the door means fewer spiders at the door. You've solved the actual problem instead of fighting the symptom. Then seal the gaps. Not with an exterminator, with a $2 tube of caulk and an afternoon. Walk the outside of your home and look for the cracks where a pencil could fit. Around pipes, around the dryer vent, under the door where you can see daylight. Those are the doorways. Close them and the spider has no reason and no route to come in, because its food and its path are both gone. This is what the pest company won't tell you, because sealing a gap once is a lot cheaper than a spray every quarter. Every bit of that costs less than a single exterminator visit, which where I live runs $150 to $300 a pop, and an annual contract runs $400 to $600 a year after year, forever. I did the math on what I'd spent over 11 years. Almost $2,000. And my bug problem was never actually solved. It was just managed to keep me subscribed. The glass, the postcard, the yellow bulb, and the tube of caulk cost me under $20 one time, and my house has fewer bugs now than it ever did when I was paying professionals. So that's the practical rescue for anyone who thinks their situation is too far gone. It isn't. You can start tonight. But there's one more thing I found. The piece that pulled the whole picture together for me, and it's the part almost nobody knows. For the longest time, even after I'd stopped killing them, I still couldn't shake the feeling that I had no idea how many spiders were really out there. I couldn't see them at night. I didn't know if the one under my porch was still around or if my garden had 1 or 20. I was working blind, just trusting they were there. Then I came across an old technique that field researchers have used for decades to survey wolf spider populations in the dark, and the first time I tried it in my own yard, I actually laughed out loud on my back step at 11 at night. Wolf spider eyes glow in the dark. Not like a joke. Really glow. Their eyes have a special reflective layer, the same kind of tissue that makes a cat's or a deer's eyes shine in your headlights. It's called a tapetum. And a wolf spider's eyes reflect light back at you with an almost eerie, bright greenish shine. In daylight, you'd never spot the spider. But at night, with the right light, its eyes light up like tiny jewels scattered across the ground. Here's the trick. You take a small flashlight, and you hold it right up next to your own eyes, level with your temple, pointed out in the same direction you're looking. The beam has to travel out and bounce straight back along your line of sight. Then you sweep it slowly across your lawn, your flower beds, your porch, the base of your foundation, and suddenly you'll see them, little green sparks looking back at you from the grass. One here, one there, a dozen you never knew were on guard duty every single night. The very first night I did it, I found 9 wolf spiders in my small backyard. 9. I'd been sharing my home with a whole night crew and never knew it. And a cheap ultraviolet flashlight, a black light, the kind you can buy for about $5 or $6, works even better because it makes them stand out even more against the dark ground. This method isn't some internet trend. It's a real field technique that entomologists and university researchers have relied on for years to count wolf spiders in agricultural fields and study how they move at night, precisely because it's the only reliable way to see these hunters after dark. Farmers and scientists who understand the value of these predators use this to make sure their fields still have their natural protectors. Now you can use the exact same tool to check on the ones guarding your home, and this is what changed everything for me. Because the moment I could see them, I stopped being afraid of them. Fear lives in the unknown. Once those 9 little green lights looked back at me, they stopped being a threat lurking in the dark and became what they always were, a team of tireless, harmless workers patrolling my property for free while I slept. I go out now every couple of weeks with my little flashlight, and I count them like a farmer checking his fields. When the count is healthy, I know my bug problem is being handled by the oldest, cheapest, most reliable pest control there has ever been. That's the whole secret. It was written down by Carl Clerk in 1757. It was practiced by farmers for 1,000 years before that. It was buried under $20 billion a year of marketing that needed us afraid. And it comes back to life the second you pick up a flashlight instead of a shoe. So the next time you flip on that porch light and see those 8 legs frozen against the wall, I hope you feel what I feel now. Not fear, relief. That's not an intruder. That's the guard who works for free. The one I spent 11 years and nearly $2,000 trying to fire before I finally understood he was the best help I ever had. If you're the kind of person who'd rather trust proven common sense than an expensive contract that never quite fixes the problem, then you already think the way our grandparents did, and that instinct is worth more than anything a salesman can offer you. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever squashed a big wolf spider and watched the babies scatter the way I did by my back door? Or have you got one living on your porch right now that you're going to look at differently tonight? Tell me in the comments. I read them. And let me know where you're watching from, because I'm curious which parts of the country still remember the old ways and which ones got sold the fear. Drop a comment. It genuinely helps more people find this. And if you want more of these buried, common-sense methods that convenience and marketing quietly took from us, come along with the rest of us who are digging them back up one at a time. Next, I'm going to show you the forgotten reason our grandparents kept a bowl of a single common kitchen ingredient on the windowsill all summer, and how it kept ants out of the whole house without a drop of poison. You'll want to see that one before the warm weather hits. Put the shoe down, pick up the flashlight, and I'll see you in the next one. That flashlight trick I promised? Inside my membership is where it really begins, the season-long backyard predator log, picking up right where we stopped. And in there you can ask me your own question, and a real person, me, answers you myself. You won't be doing this alone, folks, like you are already inside the Old Ways Almanac. Just point your phone's camera at the code on the screen, and you can cancel any time.